All right, everyone, welcome back to another weekly roundup edition of On the Margin. I am joined by, as always, by my consistent co-host, Mr. Mark Eastcow.
Mark, thank you, Michael. Thank you, Michael. And consistently have been, doing the stock reveal, and the climb is back. The climb is back. I got to climb today. I'm in the office, so I got to do the climb. And all right, the Bitcoin bull is back, baby. And I thought maybe we lost him, and I was going to have to put on the crypto winter for the groundhog, but I don't know. I think we had a pretty testy retest, and now we've had a nice little double bottom pattern. So I'm feeling better.
I think we had for those of you who don't track the price of Bitcoin, it's probably as much as Mark and I do. We had a pretty big dump earlier this week. In fact, we were on a call, right? I think right after that dump was happening. Dan Tapiro as well, who'll be at DAS this coming week. And we were getting a little concerned. Bitcoin bounced hugely overnight. I feel like this might have something to do with unwinding of, the ETH Bitcoin ratio has really been just a one-way track up. I wonder if this is people basically unwinding and getting out of that trade, approaching the merge.
I think so. People keep saying, "Oh, it's going to be such a big deal and it'll be this big run up." I don't know. I'm on the other side. I'm on a buy the rumor, sell the news. I hope Travis Kling is right. In fact, we should have Travis on sometime. Travis is great, runs Ikigai.
Yes.
We're early investors and meaningful investors, and he's convinced. Well, I kind of talked to him for a couple of weeks, but he was convinced that ETH was going to 10,000. He even thought he'd do it by the end of the year, post the merge, but he may have changed that in recent weeks. But would be an interesting conversation.
What's his rationale for that? Out of curiosity, if you can explain it.
Yeah, I can't. And that's why I think we should have him, because I don't really get. I understand the core of the thesis, which is, look, this is the building blocks of applications for DeFi and for many of the things that we think blockchain is eventually going to be used for. I get that. And that ERC20 has kind of established itself as a core, and then there's ERC55 and these other things. And again, I'm not so technical that I really understand the nuance of the merge. I still don't like proof of stake. I'm just against it, generally speaking, because I think it allows people with large holdings to exert undue influence. And that's kind of what we're trying to move away from with decentralization. So I'm still a proof of work fan, but he very eloquently lays out a case for why that should happen. Although, I don't know if we want to talk about the other stuff that other show, I don't even want to mention the name of that other show, but because people shouldn't watch, well, they should watch that other show, but they shouldn't watch it as much as this show. And they should definitely use Mike 250 to sign up to come to New York next week. Let's get this going, y'all.
Yeah. We've got a really, honestly, I'm biased. We're going to be on a panel. It's going to bring down the house. You, me, Dan, Bill Barheit. We're going to be doing bulls and bears, basically a take on the next 12 months of crypto. We've got a really great showing. Moorhead's going to be there. He's going to be speaking with, I think I mentioned this, one of the Temasek guys. Great, very institutional kind of roundup there. But again, a lot of the folks that you've heard on the show, Danielle DeMartino Booth, Alfonso, Urian Timmer, Mike Green, just very institutional showing for crypto. It's going to be a ton of fun. Guys, Jack is winning.
Yeah.
Jack is winning in this. So Jason's in the dust. So we can chill
Empire all we want. That's good. He who shall not be named is in the dust. So that's good. But we got to fix collectively here, Mark and Mike. Mark and Mike in the morning. So
I like that.
Yeah. And maybe we should change the name of the show. Go on ESPN, it'd be good. And but here's the thing. People should use Mike 250 and come to New York, not just to hang with us, because that's a good reason to come to New York, but also because it's just great to be back. I did a day trip to DC the other day, and it's just great to be back. I'm excited to come to New York. But most importantly, we got Bill Barheit ex kind of CIA guy, and I had an interesting conversation yesterday with a guy in South Africa, of all places, halfway around the world, which I love. I love the digital
Yeah.
age. Right? I love the fact that I can have a conversation in real time with someone halfway around the world. And he made the most compelling argument, like not crazy conspiracy theorist argument, but an actual argument for why Bitcoin was created by the NSA and the CIA. So we got Bill on our panel. So I think in addition to the, very calm, stable, institutional conversation, we should go down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole.
I'd love to ask him about it. You know what? One of my favorite, when I was a kid, I read a lot. And now I mostly listen to podcasts, but I read a lot of like fantasy fiction type books back then. Now when I read, I love reading, nonfiction, true stories, because real life is stranger than fiction. There's stories that happened out there that actually happened that if you were written in a book, you'd be like, this is so unreal. Like this would never happen, but they do happen in real life on a very regular basis. Actually, I'll shill a podcast that has been shilled to me. Shout out Riley if you're listening to this, by people like Riley for years. The show Acquired. And, it's like the Game of Thrones effect. You know how when there are those people that haven't watched Game of Thrones and they've been listening to so many people say you need to watch Mark. Okay, all right. So, but basically,
I'll tell you why. I'll give you my story why, but keep going.
All right, because people have probably told you over the years, like, you got to watch this, and eventually you're like, enough. But people have told me to watch this show forever called Acquired. It is so good. They do these deep dives into like these great businesses. I just listened to the Standard Oil one, which is going to come up in the show. The John D. Rockefeller story, incredible.
Oh no!
But I listened to the. Yeah. Have you guys heard? Have you heard? I'm sure you probably have. TSMC. I listened to the TSMC story. You know that was founded by a 56-year-old guy.
I did not know that.
56-year-old guy.
I love. As a 59-year-old guy, I love that. And look, wisdom is underrated. But here's the reason I didn't watch Game of Thrones. So my family, like my daughter, my wife, they're all into it. They're watching it. I'm just like, okay, whatever. Fine. I will watch. And I sat down, and it turned out to be the Red Wedding episode. And within 7 minutes, 23 people got killed. And I was like, I'm out. I'm like, this is dumb. This is not interesting to me at all. I'm out. And I've never watched another minute. I watched 7 minutes of Game of Thrones. Yeah.
That's so devastating, because that's a seminal moment in my TV watching, content consuming life and experience. It was so, I couldn't believe, like, my mouth was on the floor when I was watching that episode.
Michael, I was like, what is this? What is this?
Oh my God. God. It's that. And I think that was the most surprised I've ever been watching a TV show. There was another moment in House of Cards season 1 that I don't want to do spoilers, but like there was a very shocking moment where, Jaw was on the floor type thing. I want to just get your thoughts going into, there are two things that are making not an enormous amount of sense to me, I guess, in crypto before we kind of zoom out and talk about the macro. One, I would love to get your thoughts on the merge, because this has become a moment, something that, I find it very interesting, like issues that attract very smart people lining up on different sides of the debate, polar opposite. China's one, Tesla's one, crypto's one. The merge, in my view, has become one too, because there's basically, side number A, which is kind of the Travis side, which is like, this is going to 10,000, right? And this is this enormous, structural shift in demand. There's like a plus ESG narrative, because like 99.5% of energy requirements are moving as we transition from proof of work to proof of stake. And this is just going to be huge structural inflows. And there's this narrative around real yield, all that kind of stuff. And then there's like, this is going to be a buy rumor, sell the news. These don't have to be totally mutually exclusive. Like, this could just be a timing difference. But I'd love to get your thoughts going into the merge. And then I want to get your thoughts on NFTs, actually, because that's another, we talked about this again earlier this week. But what are your thoughts going into the merge writ large?
Look, I'm struggling, because I do believe that at least for now, we are in the multi, chain world. and I keep talking about this, is it's, to me, it's the $64 trillion question, literally, that are we going to have a stack like we have, the internet, TCP/IP, FTP, HTTP, SMTP, www dot. Okay. If we're going to have a stack, then I can make an argument for a stack that is Bitcoin, Filecoin, Cosmos, Polkadot, Solana, Avalanche. I don't know which of those two is the other two, and then www dot is Ethereum. I can make that case, but there's also a case for Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche, side by side stacks, and then you got bridges and stuff. And again, that's probably the depth of my technical understanding of the nuanced difference. But I do believe, actually, that Ethereum is an example of the law of increasing returns. Paul Romer won the Nobel Prize for this. That it's not the best technology that wins, the technology that gets the critical mass first. And there's more developers, more products, more related tokens and activity on Ethereum. Therefore, it is in a pole position. But all that is countered by I just worry about proof of stake and the consolidation of power. And you're starting with an enigmatic, I don't know if that's the right adjective, but I think so, founder, super smart, but again, since we started with the conspiracy theory, maybe we'll keep going, was a Thiel fellow. Turns out Thiel has some connections to some people in different places, in governments and agencies. There's a thesis out there, conspiracy theory, whatever you want to call it, that Ethereum, unlike Bitcoin, could have a backdoor kind of mechanism. One of the things about that conspiracy theory of Bitcoin being created by the NSA is, we may have talked about this already, but I actually asked someone who probably would know. So Scott Stornetta, who is the most cited guy in the Bitcoin white paper, is one of the co-founders of blockchain technology. I mean, he's a big deal. He's a venture partner of ours. And I asked him, what do you think about this theory? He's like, well, I never really thought about it. And I went down the whole thing. In fact, if you type in Satoshi Nakamoto into Google, you get Intelligence Central, because Nakamoto is the surname of people from the central region of Japan, and Satoshi means intelligence. So it's kind of a little fun fact. He's like, yeah, okay, fine. It could have been created, but here's the problem. There's an air gap. So like the old way we think about software, where you could have code in a backdoor where you literally could steal stuff, and most of Web 2 has backdoors and that kind of stuff. He said you can't do it. Like, okay, makes me feel better. In Ethereum, I don't think that's true. I think there could be that. So that's one thing that bothers me. And then the second thing is you got the XRP heads out there, which came after me, right? Because I said something someone asked me a question on a podcast about why in our index that we do with Bitwise, we exclude XRP and XLM. I said, because of concentration, right? There's a limit. If you're 70% centrally owned, not centralized, but centrally owned, then we won't own you. Same way the S&P. If you're a closely held company, you can't be in the S&P. That's why for years, Tesla, even though it was big enough, couldn't be in the S&P because it was still too tightly controlled, because it can be manipulated. So their claim is that, well, if you include all the whales that hid their stakes, and I would put, Vitalik probably in that group. I think that's who they're referring to. If you put all their stakes together, they have the same level of concentration as XRP. I'm like, well, first, two things. One, this is not zero sum. If Ethereum, and I'm not saying it is, but if Ethereum was as concentrated as XRP, that doesn't make XRP better, right? That's not how it works. So I do worry that there is a concentration issue that we may not be aware of. That makes me nervous, and so I haven't gone all in. Right, we own Ethereum, we do, and I have partners who want to play the merge, and I have resisted, and maybe I'll be wrong.
I'm not sure. I'm not a trader, so I don't have specific opinions about like price action around the merge. What I would say is the thing that I find myself thinking a lot about is just different. Like one, I'm very torn about my current view on. I have a lot of thoughts on Bitcoin. I don't really want to get into it right now, but with Ethereum, you know, when you move to a smart contract layer, I'm unsure about this like call option on a monetary premium, how much that has an impact in something that's a technology stack. It's just something that's totally new, and I don't have a strong opinion on it. There are kind of two different models that are emerging, right? There's like this ETH kind of generalized smart contract layer with L2s that help it scale, versus the other ecosystem that's really interesting is a Cosmos type ecosystem where you have basically a layer 0 with different security properties, and then app specific chains get built on that. Those are just two different technology paradigms. Typically one technology paradigm ends up winning out over the other. So I think there is a difference. There's a difference. Yeah. But I don't think these are like mutually exclusive things. There are probably some things that are more well suited for. It's just very difficult. But I think there is a difference between.
I think, Michael, that's exactly right. And if it's the former, right? L1 things built, L2s, L3s, L4s, proof of work versus proof of stake. I'm going proof of work. So DeFi on Bitcoin may make that landscape not work for ETH. Cosmos, I do think, has this interesting role. So could we have a Bitcoin Lightning Cosmos something, and ETH is up here somewhere as an app development platform? Maybe, yeah.
Mark, maybe I could poke at you though, just because one thing that I've heard from great investors, of which I know you are one, is that you got to be careful about seeing the world for what it is versus the way you want it to be or think it should be. And I can just tell you from like energies in these different ecosystems, like I love Bitcoin. I still, my disclosure, my largest holding, like I have an enormous amount of faith in it, belief, but like the energy and development that's going into not only ETH, but different smart contract layers is like, and I agree. I understand. I empathize that there's,
I agree.
You know what I mean?
That.
I'm just like my eyes are open. I guess just my eyes are open, and I'm just watching the amount of innovation and the types of people that are engaging in ecosystem A versus ecosystem B. And for me, I'm kind of just like, how could it's I don't know.
Michael, that's the key, right? And it's this whole thing about beliefs. And look, crypto has become religious, right? We got tribes and factions, and we got holy wars, and beliefs are formed wrong, right? Most people take a belief and then they accept all data that supports the belief, and they reject any data that's against their belief. Like, no, that's backwards. Gather all the data, good data, bad data, just gather the data. Look at it, marinate on it, ruminate in it, and then make a belief and decide. And to your point, if you just look at data and facts, you're like, really smart people, really motivated people, really talented people, have a really clear plan, are actually making real progress. Just development activity, it's just not really close right now. I don't know. I'm with you. I would much rather look at data and form a conclusion than form a conclusion and find data to support it.
Yeah. I also think one other thing I'm starting to develop a theory around is that, when you have these paradigm shifts or big just changes, when you look through the lens of history, they're often, especially when time has passed, they're looked at as like this positive thing happened, right?
Right.
This is the way we used to do it. This is the way we
Right.
do it now. Positive thing XYZ. When in reality, everything has trade-offs, I think, associated with it. And usually, I used to view incumbents as like they're just old and lazy and bored and tired and they don't want to change. I think part of that's true. But I also think part of it is they were part of the paradigm shift that happened before that. They
Yeah.
saw the benefits of that shift,
Yeah.
and they're worried about losing the benefits that shift occurred. And they're kind of right, because let me give you an example of something that's just social media in general. It would be silly for the two of us to sit here and be like, social media should go back, because we're never going back, right? But all those arguments about kind of feeling disconnected and levels of happiness, those are all totally legitimate. Those are completely legitimate arguments.
Completely real. Completely.
You know what I mean? So that's how I kind of feel. I
Look,
want
I
to zone
can
in on.
tell. I can tell
Yeah.
when my daughter has been on social media.
Mm.
Like the moment she walks in a room, I can tell how long it's been since she was on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
It's frightening. And look, she survived because she was a little older when it really came out. So she didn't have to go through middle school, high school, which is that really critical period.
Yeah.
But my son just entered middle school, and my youngest son. And, thankfully he didn't have to deal with being a girl in middle school. Because
Thank God.
I think social media, I believe this at my core, is destroying the self-image of young people. And I think it's going to create huge societal problems in the future. Just like I talk about the participation trophy generation. I think that had huge implications, right? Where parents tried to be your friend and tried to make things easy for you and reward every little thing you do. I'm like, no, bullshit. You fail. And there are consequences. And you should have to do chores, and you should not be friendly. I mean, you can be you can be a friendly, but don't be a friend. I mean, you're not buddies. You're a parent, and you got obligations. And there's no manual, and I get it. And I don't know. It's just we're in a very strange place. I saw a great little video this morning. Said what the metaverse would look like in real life. It was a guy panning a square in Europe, and it was not metaverse. It was literally real life, but you had the craziest things. There was a juggling clown, and so it was like what you would expect would be in the metaverse, all this disparate things, but it was real. Like, well, maybe that's what we should do, is engage more in real and not just make up stuff to go escape from. But I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I would take it maybe one layer down for that. I'm not sure if it's but it's definitely, it has a big impact, right? There are positive aspects of that impact. Like I do believe part of what Facebook and Twitter is saying is I get a lot out of I've basically started to curate. I got off Snapchat a little while ago. Yeah. I basically use Instagram for memes. I actually use it to all I follow is meme accounts, and I ping them to my buddies when I'm like, hey, thinking of you. This little meme reminded me of you. I use it as a way to just keep in touch. Yeah, and then I go on Twitter for news, basically. And that's how I use social. Actually, there's another good one called Be Real. Are you on this?
No. All right.
It pings you at a random time in the day. I would get a notification right now, and I'm supposed to be real. And I take a photo of myself, and it does the front and back of the camera, and it will all of your friends. It's just whatever they're doing during the day. So it actually has this much more wholesome. It's oh, I just see they're going and getting groceries, or they're at work, or they're in, it's less curated, which is really good.
No, I like it. It'd be very different than, I can't remember what movie it was, but there's it opens with this young girl, trying to get this perfect picture. And then she, and literally 5 minutes, which in a movie is a long time, right?
Yeah.
And then she types, just rolled out of bed. No, you didn't. You didn't just roll out of bed and look like that. You got your hair, you did your makeup, and then you found the perfect position. And I was at the beach this weekend, and there are these two young women, and not exaggerating, Michael. like a long time. I
Mm.
shouldn't even put minutes on it because it was embarrassing. How long, they're doing the hair flip and trying to get the right angle for the, and
Yeah.
and
I mean,
one as a dad, I'm like, nope, inappropriate pictures of the just inappropriate, right? So that's the first, right? Second, it's not like you have to be covered up like the 1920s, but there are bathing suits that are appropriate and the ones that aren't.
mm.
And I shouldn't say anyway for a family beach versus
I hear,
con.
I hear, I hear the point you're trying to make. It is. I feel like kids are forced to grow up younger and younger and faster, and it's alarming. I can only imagine as a parent, and I'm not sure it's a particularly good thing.
I
I
guess the
want to.
one thing is we're all learning how to be expert photographers and understand
That's
lighting and
true.
so I guess
Yeah.
that's a skill, right?
Exactly. That's the silver lining that we come here for.
Yeah.
I want to get your opinion on something decidedly non-social media related. I still think the two most important things right now to be paying attention to, a broken record on this in the economy, is housing and the unemployment rate.
Yep.
So this is a chart that was shared by our friend Dan Tapiero. So this is
I was just going to say, do you have Dan's chart? And
uh,
it is amazing, truly amazing sometimes how much we think alike.
we are in
Literally,
sync.
that was
We are
about
in
to come out
sync.
of my mouth.
But this is basically for those of you who are following on, we're looking at just basically a stacked bar chart here of percentage of housing prices that are either moving up, mostly increasing, flat, or decreasing. So if you are following along on the video, that's the green bar at the bottom of the chart. The flat is the yellow part, and the orangish red area up there is largely decreasing from July of 21 to April of 22. I mean, it was like anywhere from 77 to 89%, right, of home prices were increasing roughly like month over month. That started to turn in, April, May of this year. And now you're actually starting to see, in July was kind of the first big month, whereas 35% of homes decreasing, 45% flat, only 20% increasing. And this is something that you and I have talked about, right? Like, why hasn't this happened sooner? Because mortgage rates have doubled, in the span of like 6 months or something like that. Very hard for mortgage rates to double like that with the median home price being what it is, and for that to just not move, essentially. So, I mean, I just want to check in. Like, what are your thoughts on the housing market in general?
I think it's collapsing,
Mm-hmm.
and I think there's lots of both anecdotal and actual evidence, as you just showed, that would support that. And Dan's point, which I'll reiterate, is that is the tip of the spear, right? Housing drives everything, right? Drives consumption, furniture consumption, and leisure consumption, and it even has linkages to cars because you get the second garage, so you got to fill it up, and I mean it's a huge indicator of how bad economic activity and this whole mantra that we're going to have this magic reversal. If you listen to all the companies doing their reports, yeah, we missed. Yeah, but it was inflation. It was inflation. But by third quarter, fourth quarter, we're going to be back to double digit growth. Microsoft, which has zero growth, said we're going to be at 12% by Q3. I'm like, no, you're not. You're just not. And
Mm-hmm.
again, lies are interesting things. And it's probably egregious to call them liars, but I think they are. I think all these companies just lie. And it's self-preservation, right? Because their stock options matter to them, and it's kind of like I wish I could remember where the chart was, but there's a great chart that shows seasonality of earnings estimates.
Mm.
Like there was one somebody reported yesterday. I can't remember who it was, and it was on social media as a beat. They lost 36 cents because their estimate was minus 38 cents. Like that's not a beat. You lost 36 cents. I mean, you lost money, a lot of money. And if you go back a year, they were saying they were going to make money. So what happens is at the beginning of the year, everybody ratchets up their expectations.
Mm.
But by September, October, all the estimates are being revised down.
Yeah.
because there's about a 40%, imagine that, 40% gap between what expectations are in January and what actually happens by the end of December. And yet, we all believe that 75% of companies beat. Well, that's not possible. If earnings are always 40% overestimated, then the majority of companies aren't beating. But what they're doing is I would say, you take the high jump bar off the rack, you put it on the ground, you jump over it. I'm the high jump champion. No, you're not. And so I think earnings are about to collapse, which is going to be a problem for stocks. I think the Fed, for whatever ill-guided reason, is going to continue to crank on rates, which is going to do more harm to housing and more harm to small business. And I don't have any idea. I really don't. I've been trying to, think. I was invited to speak at this private equity conference out in Utah. Really interesting group called Peterson Partners. Really fantastic investors, and they had 150 of their investors, very successful people who started great businesses. One of my favorite was a guy that we backed twice. The guy who started JetBlue and Azul is now back for a third time with a company called Breeze, which is a budget airline, and doing great things. But that's the type of people there. And they asked me to speak on the Fed and recession. And so the title of my talk, which, I'm a huge Top Gun fan. I thought Top Gun was the greatest movie ever until Top Gun Maverick came out. And now Top Gun Maverick is the greatest movie. I watched it twice on a flight the other day. I mean, it's so good. I watched it twice. And no, it's just so good. And so good. I mean, it's just so good. And so the title of my thing was Top Gun JPOW, or I think I did call sign JPOW, recession, depression, or soft landing, right? He promised us all a soft landing. He's no pilot, and we're not going to have a soft landing, and we're going to have a Jaeger landing. Chuck Yeager said, a good landing is anyone you can walk away from. I'm like, okay, so you can crash, but as long as you walk away, as long as you don't die. So I don't think we're going to die, but I do think we're going to have wreckage and serious wreckage. And, so I had to, my point was I had to get in, try to get inside his head, because I don't know the man. And I tried really hard to understand why you would tighten liquidity into one of the greatest reversals in economic activity we've ever seen. And I couldn't do it. I could not come up with a good reason. So I
feel like I could come up with a reason, actually.
All right.
I just think it's his legacy, right? It's like everyone right now, right? Like the Fed is a very political institution, as you and I have talked about for a long time. Like there are, during these periods of inflation, right? This is kind of the reason for being of a central bank in general is for price stability to moderate inflation. So we, evoke these periods of history in U.S. history where we had inflation. There's like the Volcker and there's the Burns. And I think Powell sees, right? I think the panic has started to set in that, oh my God, I do not want to be seen as the Fed chair that ushered in this inflation. You're starting to see it from other bankers as well. Lagarde gave a speech earlier this week. Yeah. And it was a similar thing. These people are worried about their legacies.
It's and literally the arsonist calling the fire department. Literally. Yeah. Literally, you light the building on fire and then you go get a garden hose and you think you're a hero. That's amazing, because I think that's probably right. That's good insight.
You know what? Let me ask you this too, because here's something else that we've talked about, is that the Fed basically looks at, central banks, not just the Fed, look at lagging indicators for inflation, right? So they look at lagging indicators for inflation, which is why, and they're a big, conservative institution, so they're typically behind the eight ball. How the whole point of the Fed is to moderate the business cycle. How are you going to look in the rearview mirror at indicators that have already happened and moderate it?
No, Michael, that was one of my cartoons. There's this great site, investing.com, that does a weekly cartoon. And that was one of my cartoons. So one of the cartoons was JPOW with this toy plane trying to come in for a landing. The other one was a road with a sharp turn and all these danger warning signs, and literally JPal looking in the rearview mirror. It was exactly as you described. And look, when you're looking in the rearview mirror and the road turns, you go right off the cliff. And
Right.
and here's the thing: inflation's gone. Inflation's gone. Oil prices are $80, headed for 60. We will. Here's the crazy thing: my 11-year-old son the other day said, "Wow, gas prices are down a lot."
Yeah.
You're paying attention to gas prices? You don't buy gas. It's like, and so it must be is myself and my wife must complain like every time we pull in to fill up the car. We must have been saying, "I can't believe gas." So he's like, "Look, Dad, it's like 360." I'm like, "Wow, okay." And I believe, and mark my words, gas will have a two handle by the election, by November, whatever we vote on, 4th, 5th, 6th, whatever the day is. It will have a two handle because that's the only chance the Dems have of any chance. I mean, and they don't have
Yeah.
much chance, but that's the only chance. And so that is totally reversed. So you go, that will be year over year negative. And used car prices just went all the way back. Used car prices are now back to where they were, and the rate of change is the fastest that we've ever seen. So I think that part is gone. Now, what we still have is the currency devaluation piece, right? The arsonists, Lagarde, Crazy Kuroda-san, and JPal, they created the problem.
Yeah.
And there's this whole idea that no, it's not this government spending, it's not the money printing, it's Putin. It's Putin. Are you freaking kidding me? No, it's not Putin. It is you, right? It's the old Pogo commercial that most people are too young to remember, right? We've seen the enemy and he is
Right.
us. We're
Right.
the enemy.
This is the other thing, that again, in this dichotomy of potential worlds, right, where the Fed raises rates, the market, takes the proverbial medicine, and we return to some semblance of normalcy, and then kind of continue to do what we were doing. That's like one vision of the future. The other vision is a vision of basically financial repression, where inflation is allowed to run, over yields, basically. So, savers get punished, bondholders get punished, and then there are government handouts. And something that I don't think got quite enough play. I think Europe is actually sort of becoming the canary in the coal mine, so to speak, just because they're in a less advantageous situation than the U.S. Look at what they're doing. So we have a new prime minister over in the UK. What does she do immediately upon getting elected? There is this enormous, essentially, bailout, which is basically just a government handout to people. And it's like,
Look,
this is
she's
not how you
Evita.
fight.
She is Eva Peron. Oh, Argentina.
Yeah.
Here, free stuff, electricity. And it's interesting that it's electricity that we're talking about, because that's exactly what Argentinian dictators did forever, is they gave people subsidized electricity.
It's just, it's pretty nuts. It's, this is not a small package. This is $150 billion package. And this is, to bail out, this is to bail out basically people in the UK. And they're also trying to implement price caps. This is something, it's like the canonical thing that you get taught in textbooks that do not work. Price caps don't work.
Price fixing doesn't work in anything. Not anything.
Seriously, Never. We've got like 2,000 years of history and extremely prominent examples, right, for why this happened. All the favorite period of time that I always loved to do, Rome, in like the 200s or 300s, they tried to do this price cap on wine. That was like the big thing, because everyone loved to drink the wine. They fixed the price of wine, but it's completely neglected to understand that different merchants importing had totally different cost structures. So for some of them, actually, they started, they quadrupled their profits because it was like, oh my God, I can charge this. Yeah. And other ones were like, I can't make any money on this. It completely messes everything up. Greedy merchants get blamed. And it's like, this is the classic thing that doesn't work.
That's why I love doing this show with you, Michael. There are very few people on this planet that can elucidate a point that is happening in real time with real documented examples of the same behaviors and phenomenons from 2,600 years ago. I absolutely love the fact that there's nothing new in this world, that we're humans, and that we repeat the same errors over and over. But the fact that you are a student of history, and we know, right? Churchill was right. Bringing it back to the UK. The further back you look, the farther forward you can see. And here we are talking 2,600 years ago. So I think we have the most insight, which is why you need to watch this show and not the others, and use Mike 250
Like
to
250, baby.
get
Full
with
circle.
us. I mean, how could you not want to hang out with us in New York next week? I mean, come on,
I don't know.
seriously.
I don't know. Seriously, it's baffling to me as well.
Baffling.
We've got a bunch of people did sign up, so thank you if you're listening to the show. Use the code. You guys are incredible. We'll see you live. But it's just disturbing. It's just another data point in the series of data points.
If we had made an NFT, oh my god, what were we thinking? Why didn't we mint a Mike 250 NFT?
Should have done it. Should have done.
Holy,
you know what?
Okay, next year.
We'll talk offline about because we did NFTs the Permies for permissionless. Actually, I have a whole bunch of theories about this, but I want to actually bring this back to crypto for one. There's a pretty interesting story that happened this week, which is there's a partnership. So Coinbase Institutional proposed an MIP, which is a maker improvement proposal on their governance forum, where they essentially want to take it's like $1.6 billion in something called the PSM, the Peg Stability Mechanism for Maker. They want to put it in Coinbase Institutional, and they want to earn 1.5% yield on it, which you can read for those of you who aren't super technical. Maker DAO is basically there's a distinction in vision for what it is, but basically it's a protocol where you can deposit collateral and mint DAI, which is a stable coin. Basically the collateral that backstops this protocol is USDC. And there's something called the PSM, which is the Peg Stability Mechanism, where it's a combination of USDC that's owned by the protocol, by Maker, and then there's some customer deposits. Basically, it's a balance sheet. So some folks at Maker are saying, hey, we've got a bunch of USDC, which, by the way, Circle is earning an enormous amount of money on. It's basically just backstopped by treasuries. We want to earn some of that yield that basically only Circle's earning. So right now they're just switching custodians. They're moving it over to Coinbase. They're going to earn 1.5 of yield, which I find interesting. But the two things that actually makes me think about are, one, we've actually completely flipped narratives. If you remember a year ago, everyone said yield is the Trojan horse for crypto. Mm-hmm. Now it's how do we import these yields from TradFi into crypto? Right. Completely flipped. Flipped, which is hilarious. But another one that I would love to get your opinion on, and Jim Bianco has talked about this before. There's a headline: stablecoin issuers own $80 billion worth of U.S. Treasuries, and there's a Financial Times article, and they've got these little bar chart, and they show that stablecoin issuers own more Treasuries than Berkshire Hathaway, which is pretty nuts, pretty crazy. And I guess there are two ways that you could look at this, because in one sense you could say, wow, this is a point that Jim made, which is regulators are going to be really concerned about that, because these things structurally look like money market funds. SEC gets to regulate those things, and that's not, they don't want money, those funds to get big enough, because what they're worried about is a run on the bank, where let's say Circle gets to $500 billion or $1 trillion, then there's a run on Circle, then they have to sell $500 billion worth of treasuries. The government doesn't like that. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, so you could say maybe they're going to get regulated. They're going to get heavily regulated. That's going to be bad. But the other way that you could look at this is, U.S. is talking about running $1 trillion deficit into perpetuity. How are they going to do that? They are going to issue treasuries, but they're going to try, right? They're going to try. They're going to issue.
It's your point. You can't unless you find buyers for your debt. And this is why all the jawboning about we're going to clamp down on this stuff suddenly quelled, because I think someone did your math. And the other problem is Putin and Xi, right? Done. We're done with you. We're not buying anymore. We got our trillion. We're good. And here's an interesting thing. Again, something I heard the other day, which I thought was absolute genius, that what the average person doesn't understand. Actually, maybe you even said this. somebody said this. Who said this? China is raising the dollar or boosting the dollar to destroy the United States. I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly right. That is absolute genius, because what people don't understand is we went from a country that was reliant on imports, right? Where what you want is a strong dollar, to a country that now exports. We're the oil producers. We're, coal producers. We're car producers. And now a strong dollar is killing us. In a world where everyone else is devaluing their currencies to be mercantilist, a strong currency makes you weaker. I'm like, oh my God, that is absolute genius.
Well, historically, when that's happened, there's an accord, right? There's the Plaza Accord, right? And I actually haven't seen. I mean, the dollar is, hit a 20-year high or something like that, right? And who doesn't love that is Japan. Europe hates that. So, I mean, this isn't conspiracy. I mean, this is like a documented thing that happened, right?
Real stuff.
The Plaza Accord.
Real stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh shoot, I had something that I wanted to end on, and I just forgot it. Gosh darn it. Oh,
NFTs?
Sorry. No, here's what I want to end on. I have been going back and listening to macro podcasts that aired like March through May of 2020 because I wanted to see how right people were. And they were so wrong, Mark. Like, so, and it's like every luminary talking head you can think of that people respect in this space were just, except, who else loudly said the opposite? Dan Tapiero.
There you go.
D-Tap literally called the bottom of COVID and was like, it's all going up. And, the arguments that were made back then, take your pick of what the arguments were. Liquidity doesn't equal solvency. Everyone was suddenly a virologist. Whatever it was, there was like all these reasons why after the 40% sell-off, it was going 75% from there.
Yep.
And when those calls were happening, it was like a straight arrow up from when these episodes aired, basically into Valhalla.
Yep.
And one thing that I've just noticed about macro content, there is a persistent bearish sway to it. Because I think it's easier. And so basically all I'm saying is like, sometimes I feel like you and I get very concerned, but I think there's always reason to be optimistic. I think there's always reason to be optimistic out there. And, when you listen to these shows, I just think you should take everything with a grain of salt. And I'm starting to get that vibe with the European energy situation. I have no special insight here, but it's like everyone and their mother is suddenly an expert on energy. Everyone's commenting on Europe, how it's falling into the ocean. And just something in the back of my head is being like, I've kind of been here before. I've seen this stuff. I've like, and that's not a scientific analysis. I have no special insight, but like, I just think it's important I'd like to make it a mission to stem the outrage a little bit, stem the emotions. I want some positive energy putting out there. It's like be the change you want to see in the world. I'm putting positive vibes out there. That's what I want to do moving forward. I think it's a possible thing to do. So, all right. I know we got to end it here.
The positive energy show.
The positive energy show. We're going to be taking that positive energy to DAS, by the way.
Absolutely. So Mike 250, sign up, join us next week. And as always, best hour of my week. Thanks, Michael.
Same.
And we'll talk to you soon.